Alright, so we're going to be talking about metals and non-metals in today's session. So here are the learning objectives that you need to know. After this topic, you will be able to explain how elements are classified as metals and non-metals, and you can use patterns to classify an element as a metal or non-metal. So if you have Kerboodle, you can go to Activate 2 Kerboodle book on page 60 for metals and non-metals 1.1 chemistry chapter 1. And let's start off the topic. So metals or non-metals. So firstly, this is the periodic table. On the left side, we need to know that on the left side, there are all metals, and on the right side, there are non-metals. Just for a bit of advanced information, anything that's near the step line, this is the step line, anything that's near this line is going to be known as metalloids. So let's just get into this, and we're going to cover everything in the session. So metals or non-metals, there are many ways of sorting elements. One classification has just two categories. So as I said, metals and non-metals, and on the periodic table, the metals are on the left side and the non-metals are on the right side. So in the test, you're going to be get asked what state three metals and state three non-metals, or anything like that. State what a metal is or what non-metal is. If it asks you to give an example of a metal or a non-metal, you can say that silver is a metal and sulfur is a non-metal, or any other example that is valid. You can also be asked to state one way of sorting the elements in the periodic table, and you can just if you just memorize what it says over here, you'll be able to answer all these questions. How can you tell whether the element is a metal or a non-metal? So this is a table to tell you the properties of a typical metal and typical non-metal. So a metal, this is a question firstly that will come up in the test 100%. Now I can tell you right now, it can come up in the test. So it will tell you to state at least 3 or 4 properties of a metal or 3 or 4 properties of a non-metal, and you have to know this. So for a typical metal, you can write down that it's a good conductor of electricity, or it's a good conductor of heat, or it's shiny and it has a high density. Or you can also write down that it's malleable, so you can hammer it into different shapes, and that it's malleable, so you can pull it into wires, and it's sonorous, so it makes a ringing noise when it is hit. And for a typical non-metal, when solid, you can write down that it's a poor conductor of electricity, poor conductor of heat, it's dull, it has low density, light for its size, and it's brittle, so it basically breaks easily, and it is not sonorous, so it does not make a ringing sound when it is hit. And so most metals have a high melting point. So they're usually solid at 20 degrees, and many non-metals have low boiling points. For example, oxygen and chlorine are gases at 20 degrees. This is another question that you have to know for your test. State 6 properties of a typical non-metal. As I said before, they can ask you at least 3, 4, or 6, or many more. They can tell you to just state the properties of a metal or non-metal. And right now you can just refer to this table where it says properties of a typical metal or properties of a typical non-metal. Do all elements fit the pattern? So most elements are easy to classify as metals or non-metals, but the system is not perfect. So mercury is a metal. It is a liquid at 20 degrees. Its melting point is lower than that of some non-metals. So the elements near the step line are metals. Like I said before, the elements are near the step line. So the step line is this red line over here. If I can zoom into this is the step line. So as you can see, this from lithium to aluminium is going to be the metals, and the step line, the red line over here, anything to the right of it is going to be non-metals, and anything near it is going to be metalloids. And their properties are between those of the metals and non-metals. So metalloids properties are between those of the metals and non-metals. So do metals and non-metals react differently? So the properties in the table on the opposite page, so the table that we've seen before for the properties of a typical metal and the properties of a typical non-metal, they describe things that you can observe and measure. So metals and non-metals also have different chemical properties. The chemical properties describe chemical reactions. So many metals and non-metals react with oxygen. The products are oxides. So for example, metal, magnesium and oxygen is going to be magnesium oxide. Non-metal, sulfur and oxygen is going to be sulfur dioxide. And this is for metals and this for non-metals. That's very important to know the difference between it. So many non-metal oxides are gases at 20 degrees, and they dissolve in water to form acidic solutions. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide are examples of acidic gases. So they are formed when some fuels burn, and they dissolve in rain to make a rain acidic. So acidic rain makes the lakes acidic, and it also damages many trees. And most metal oxides are solids at 20 degrees and they are basic. So if they dissolve in water, they can form alkaline solutions. Another question that you can be asked in the test is to describe one difference between metal oxides and non-metal oxides. And you need to know the answer to that question as well. You can also be asked to state 6 properties of a typical non-metal, or you can be asked to state one way of sorting the elements in the periodic table. You can, if you have the Kerboodle book, you can go to page 60 and page 61 for metals and non-metals before the 1.2 groups and periods, which is going to be for our next video or next session. And here are the summary questions. If you want to answer these, you can answer the summary questions to sort these properties into 2 lists: properties of metals and properties of non-metals. This is basically one of the easiest questions that you can get in the test. Is 8 marks as well, so you can get easy marks over there. You have to just sort these out into properties of metals and non-metals. So which ones of these are metals and which ones are non-metals? You're going to refer to this table over here. So over here it says good conductor of electricity, heat, shiny, high density, malleable, ductile, sonorous for metals, and poor conductor of electricity, poor conductor of heat, is dull, is low density, is brittle and not sonorous for non-metals. And you can refer to this for question number 1, where you can get easily, you can get 8 marks. For question 2, it says element A is on the left side of the periodic table, predict 6 of its properties. So you can see element A is on the left side of the periodic table and you have to predict 6 of its properties. I'm not sure if this is covered in this, but yeah, if you just read it one more time, you will know the answers to that. And it says to compare the properties of metals and non-metals. This is also very easy. Metals and non-metals, just to compare the properties of it. So again, we have to just look at this table, metals and non-metals. One thing I'm going to say is that when it says to compare, you're not supposed to just write down in a list. You have to write down, like you have to actually compare. So you can say that metals are good conductor of electricity and non-metals are poor conductors of electricity, but just do not say, do not like write down a table like this, or you'll get 0 marks in the test. That's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.